Bum, 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 bum. At everyone, book club. Where my readers at? Where my readers at? Where my beaters at? Where are my readers at? Hello, 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 Parasocial Club members. Hello. Hello, my baby. What up? What up? I'm halfway through. No way. Okay. I'm hoping our percentage is higher, man. I'm hoping our percentage is higher. The book was decided 3 weeks ago. It's 280 pages. It's 280 pages, man. That's a one-day read if you're fucking cooking. The audiobook's 7 hours. Yeah. I have a job. What do you want? Okay. All right, buddy. Do not look, man. It's okay if you didn't read. Ultimately, it's okay. This book club is only for you to extract value of if you would like. If you don't read, you don't read. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not your fucking teacher. I don't give a shit. But ultimately, I would say reading is a valuable thing to do. No? Maybe helps expand your vocabulary. And books fundamentally can change your life. Maybe in little ways about how you think of something, or maybe bigger ways. There's many books that I think have drastically changed my life. Drastically. Maybe changed the path that I go down or whatever. And I think this book was not one of them. This book was not one of them. It was woof. Woof. This woof. Damn, was this book interesting. Now, ultimately, the books are chosen by us, right? There's people who suggest them. We look through them. We vote on them. This book was voted in by thousands of people. Maybe it was based off the title. Maybe it's based off the fact that it became a movie and people wanted to watch them. But I had trouble reading this. Now, guilty as charged, I audiobooked it. You got him. The guy who listens to the audiobook every single month and never actually reads the book. He's right here, officer. I did audiobook it. And there were several times throughout it that were quite tough. We'll get into that in a little moment. But first, I'm curious. Who here actually did read it? Let's get a little poll going on. Let's do a little poll. Who read the book? I read it all. I read it. I started reading it. Or I did not read it. 3 options. Because look, I get it if you wanted to read it, but you didn't get all the way through and you started it, or you started reading it, you didn't finish it. Curious our percentage here. So for reference, for anyone who's watching the VOD later, we got a few hundred people here, 500 people. Please fill out the poll accordingly. I would like a large sample size. When is Freerin anime review? Real quick Freerin update. I have watched 4 more episodes. Let's go! Still have 8 more to go. We are getting there. We are getting there. It's coming, baby. It is coming. Truffle seasonal poll. Go to basic chat for a moment. If you pop out to basic chat, it'll go. It'll work. All right. It looks like actually this is better than last month, right? 42% of people have started reading. A quarter have finished it. The majority still didn't read it, but I'm not surprised by that fact. That's pretty good. Now, the poll might be biased towards readers because the people who watch this are more likely to be readers than not. So I would say in the grand scheme of the Parasocial Club, the book club still has the least participation. But I still think it's valuable doing, because I personally like the idea of reading 12 books a year. And I think it's a very manageable goal. Well, anyway, if you guys didn't read the book, I'm going to offer you guys a quick synopsis. It is about a guy who is not a serial killer. More accurately, he is a sociopath, diagnosed sociopath, 15-year-old, not like one of those 15-year-olds who's on Reddit who thinks he's a sociopath, diagnosed sociopathic 15-year-old who has inclinations to want to be a serial killer, but sets up a list of rules that abide by a list of principles he wants to pursue to not kill people. So, like, ultimately, he might have the tendencies of someone who is a serial killer, but is trying not to be one. That is the book. Now, coincidentally, while this guy is trying to repress his serial killer tendencies, a serial killer comes into his small town. And this serial killer, as they slowly kill people off, break down the walls that he has set up throughout his life that prevent him from being a serial killer himself, and get him more into the mindset of a serial killer until at certain points the serial killer in him comes out. Now, spoilers, obviously. He does not end up becoming a serial killer. He's able to harness them. And more spoilers, it was not a serial killer that went into town. It was a demon from hell who could transform into a monster that would slash people, take their body parts, infuse it into the body that they were using to disguise themselves as a human and not a demon, that were killing people. And then they had to kill more people faster because the body was deteriorating at a quicker and quicker rate. And then the murders were happening much quicker. And the only one who caught on to this fact was this 15-year-old sociopath, possible serial killer. And the guy who was the demon was also his neighbor. It was getting a little crazy. Let me try to actually paint it out, because this might be a fun activity. I interpret the demon metaphorically. I don't. and I, you know what? At a certain point, I did. Earlier on in the book, I thought for one, maybe this demon is actually him being the serial killer, and because this is an unreliable narrator, it is him doing these killings and then like projecting it onto his neighbor. I thought that might have been the case. Then I thought maybe it is actually just a serial killer and he wants to hide their actions. And then I ended with, no, it was just a fucking demon. But maybe I'm wrong. We'll get into that in a moment. First, let me try to get the story down. The story is, there is a 15-year-old guy. Okay, we're going to SP, sociopath. All right, his neighbor is a 70-year-old dude who is a demon. All right? And the story goes, this 70-year-old dude, this demon more accurately, used to take people's bodies and then use them as parasitic hosts and then take over their lives until he needed a new body. However, one day, and he's been doing this presumably throughout centuries, he found a body in Arizona of a 30-year-old man and then met a girl named Kay, who was also in her 30s, and then fell in love as the demon. Although he was technically still, you know, a human to her, it was a parasitic human, and it was actually a demon host. And he was able, for 40 years, to not kill anybody and just be a really good husband. And he was genuinely a really good husband. In fact, one of the most impactful things from this book, one of my biggest takeaways, is when Kay was talking about her husband, the demon, and he said, yeah, he was an old soul. He would get up every time somebody walked in the room. And my one takeaway from this book is that I will now be a person who gets up every time someone walks in the room. That was actually my only takeaway. That is the one thing I'll remember this book for in about 30 years. Anyway, I digress. After 40 years, when this guy became 70 years old, his host body is breaking down, right? This parasitic host body is breaking down. The liver's failing. The stomach's failing. The guy, presumably whose body he took, was meant to die at this age. And to stay alive, he can kill people and then add their body parts to the host body. And the reason he's doing that and not taking over some other body is so he can keep the marriage up because he loves his wife very much. And if he came home one day and he was a 30-year-old guy, his wife would be like, who the fuck are you? And he couldn't really be like, I'm a demon, because she doesn't know about the demon part. Okay? That is the premise. And this 15-year-old, because he is the neighbor, and because he is a sociopath, and because he is obsessed with serial killers, is able to use his knowledge of serial killers to figure out that this is in fact not a serial killer, follow him around, and see him as a demon. Now, I'm curious, to the people who think it's a metaphor, why do you think it's a metaphor? Because I initially did think it could be a metaphor based off the language, but like they do constantly bring up the black sludge in the black bile that the demon would leave behind in the killings. And then at the end, very overtly, the demon is caught. The whole plan, it was like basically a fucking Home Alone plan. Again, more synopsis. At the very end, the demon's body was deteriorating so quickly, he would have to kill almost every few days to be able to keep up the body that he was using as a host. And so what the 15-year-old did is he waited for the guy to go out, because the guy would wait to the last second to replenish whatever body part was failing, be it a liver, a stomach, a lung, or whatever. And he basically beat the shit out of his 70-year-old wife, the demon's 70-year-old wife, took a bunch of pictures on her cell phone and sent it to the demon, so that while the demon was trying to get his new body part at the last second, he would see it and then come home and then die because he would be on the brink of death and not have that body part to replenish the host. And that plan ended up coming to fruition. But because he brought him back to his house, the 15-year-old's mom saw it. And that's why I feel like it wasn't a metaphor. It's because the mom validated it being a demon. We have another, and this time presumably reliable narrator, seeing the demon, seeing the sludge, and then being like, yep, that was a demon, but we shouldn't tell people it was a demon because they're not going to believe it. We should just say that, whatever. Okay, so it seems like, that's good to know. It seems like most people, now do, or are on the same wavelength that it was not a metaphor, which is cool, because and not to say you can't think it was not to say you can't think it was a metaphor, but I like that I am in maybe the majority in the interpretation, being very real. I can't believe he's a real-ass person. That story was unreal. That is a real story. There's a real story. Like in Silence of the Lambs vibe, where Hannibal Lecter eats people, it's through the eyes of the sociopath. And if the main character follows this path, then they will become the demon. Okay, wait. Let me read this again. It's like in Silence of the Lambs, where Hannibal Lecter eats people, and it's through... I feel like it just can't be a demon. It just can't... it just can't be a metaphor. That's just my take. The author forced two very different stories into one. Yeah, I initially quite liked the initial story, which is what you thought it would be, which is a serial killer comes into town, and then this kid becomes obsessed with a serial killer, and then maybe like tries to become a serial killer himself, or resist the urge of being a serial killer, or tries to help the police to discover the serial killer. I think that alone is quite interesting. I think the demon angle instantly fucking sucked me out. And several times while listening to the audiobook, I was visibly cringing. It was actually the one redeeming quality of this book, and maybe it was a good thing, is the conclusion of it was quite it was simultaneously a page turner, and then also like really fucking hard to listen to. Cause it was like cringe, not in the sense of like skibbity toilet cringe, but cringe because like the main character's actions were so maybe frustrating that I was like getting annoyed, but I'd want to keep listening so that he wouldn't, he would do the fucking thing that I wanted him to do. So I kind of liked that. Like the entire plot to capture this demon, although maybe like a ridiculous plan. Like I don't know how this would have ever worked, and ended up being way too coincidental. Like I will say the Dr. Neblin twist, like that kind of hit. I was reading, I was like, damn, like that. I was sad. I was really fucking sad. I was really sad about because Dr. Neblin was the only character I liked. And I was really sad that Dr. Neblin died, and he died trying to save the kid, right? That made me sad, which is good. Ultimately, I think that the ending had that sort of tie-in. It was really fucking annoying when he started bashing the old lady's head in, and then he said, sorry, I have to stop and then take a phone call. I was like, what the fuck? That part, I was like, this is so stupid. Like, I'm just imagining it. I'm in this room with them. He's trying to bash this old lady's head in to send pictures to the demon. And then while he's doing it, he's worried he's going to kill this old lady, and his demon of being a serial killer is going to come out. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to take a call real quick. I was like, bro, really? But I understand that was necessary to eventually kill Dr. Neblin, because otherwise it would have been too coincidental. I will say, cringiest part of the whole book is when he called the demon inside himself, the serial killer aspect of him that thirsts for killing people and control over people, Mr. Monster, which is the same name that Son of Sam used for the demon inside of him. I thought that was so cringe. That he used the same name. And for people who are non-readers, Mr. Monster, this book tells you a lot about serial killers. There's a serial killer who was called Son of Sam, and he would call, similar to like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, his doctor, or his Mr. Hyde, Mr. Monster. And then the kid just copied it bar for bar and called it Mr. Monster. And I was like, that's fucking lame. He idolizes him. Yeah, I just thought it was fucking lame. It's fine. It's fine if he's a lame fucking 15-year-old. But I just like reading the POV of a lame 15-year-old less. And many times throughout this book, the kid pissed me off. And I get he's a fucking 15-year-old, and I get he's a sociopath, but man, would he fucking piss me off. The second book is named that. Oh, there's a sequel to this? There's a sequel? It's a series? There's 5? Oh, ew. So I read this book growing up. Oh, God, what was it? It was like The Average American Man. What was it called? The Average American Male. This is a book my sister got me for like fucking Christmas once. This book is about this fucking horned up, I think, college guy who beats his shit every fucking day and looks at every passing woman as someone who he wants to fuck. It is written by a Chad from the POV of a Chad. Yeah. And I remember reading it and thinking like, this fucking narrator. Because I think when you read a book, whoever the narrator is, whoever the main character is, or when you watch a movie, you want to kind of like empathize or like find similarities, commonalities between you and who you're reading. And you want the good parts of them to shine and the bad parts to maybe be quieter or whatever it is. Or at least I do that. And when I read that book, that was one of the first times I read a book where I was like, man, this guy just ain't me. We are just not the same person. But I still kind of liked reading the thoughts of this different person, because there's probably a guy like that. You know, there is a Chad out there. There is a Don. Yeah, it's kind of like Don John. There is a Don John like there. It's like the Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie. Yeah. So I don't mind reading that POV. This book, I was like, I have never met a motherfucker like this. And all I hope is that I respectfully never meet a motherfucker like this. Because I could share a beer with the Chad, and I would think they're a weird motherfucker, and I wouldn't want them to be my best friend. But I could share a beer, and I could be like, yeah, you're a horny motherfucker. You just love fucking everything. But this guy, I'm like, this is just the most unbelievably painful human. They're so painful. Which maybe is the point. Is that, you know, living as a diagnosed sociopath makes it incredibly hard to have any human connection. They have no empathy. But because of that, they become so hard to empathize with. And that it made it a tough read. You know, like when he fucking freaked the fuck out because he wasn't allowed. His freakouts are what would make me so mad. Because he'd like hide and coop up in his room, and then his mom would be like, hey. His mom was like so sweet. She'd be like, hey, I talked to your therapist and I want to help you. And it'd be like, fucking stop talking to me. And then, and he had like actually such a good support net. He did pull a knife on his mom. He actually had such a good support net with his mom and his aunt, Margaret. And the whole time he's being like a little fucking piece of shit. And it's only at the very end, like the only reason I don't fully dislike this book is because the very end salvaged a lot of it. Like the scene at the very end where his mom is trying to calm him down because the kid's freaking out. This is after he's killed the demon. Or he let the demon fucking die and sputter out on the ground. And the mom's like, hey, we should call the cops because there's a fucking dead fucking body here of Dr. Neblin. And the kid's like, what if we don't call the cops and try to hide it because I am freaked out that the cops are going to think I'm a psychopath and then put me in a psych ward and put me in jail. And the mom's like, hey, like I'm your fucking mom and I always got your back and I always will have your back. And so they're not taking you unless they're also taking me too. And then he like cried. It was the first time he cried. And that felt rewarding as a reader, having put up with him for the previous 20 or so chapters where he's just constantly a piece of shit to everybody in his life under the guise of, hey man, I'm a fucking sociopath, baby. What are you going to fucking do? Yeah, I'm only friends with you because it makes my life fucking better. No, I can't empathize with you. And then here he's like, oh, you know what? Actually, I like having a support net. So that felt rewarding. In addition to like the gut-wrenching aspect of Dr. Neblin dying. And then even, I kind of like the demon. I honestly like the demon character who murdered like 30 people more than I like the kid. Because the demon seemed like a stand-up guy. Minus the fact that he had to kill people to keep themselves alive. The demon was kind of goated. And I found it quite emotional listening to the way Kay talked about the human behind the demon. I thought that was a cool conversation. I think I would have liked the book a lot better from the POV of a demon. Yeah, that's fair. That is true. Wow, you know what? It makes sense now that you tell me there's 5 more books. Because the only cliffhanger that left off is he was like, because the kid in part of the plan for capturing the demon, right, let out the monster, the Mr. Monster inside of him to beat the shit out of the old lady. And then he had to like reel it back in so he didn't fucking go all out and kill her. And then he was like, well, once you let it out, it's like Pandora's box. It's always going to kind of stay out. It's not so easy to keep in his demon. He was stalking, what's her name? Bianca, the girl that he was obsessed with. I guess they did kind of leave that as a cliffhanger where they were like, yeah, I'm still obsessing and stalking. Oh, Brooke. Yeah, Brooke. I'm still stalking and obsessing over Brooke. And I know her social security number. And I know what she got on her test, and I sneak through her trash every night. So I'm assuming the next 5 books maybe has something to do with that. Yeah, her Gmail password. Fuck, 6 more books is crazy. I think it's strange we never feel his fear of possibly being discovered. Yeah, I don't love how bumbling the police were and everybody was to him, like literally figuring out and sneaking in. Even like the demon was unaware of everything he did. Like they kind of made this 15-year-old a goated spy who couldn't be caught doing anything. And in the back of my head, I'm like, this is a fucking 15-year-old. Like, I don't care if he's a sociopath and he likes fucking Wikipediaing every serial killer or reading books about them. He's still a dumbass 15-year-old and he's going to fuck some shit up. And Crowley didn't figure out that he was the guy constantly sneaking into his house. His mom didn't figure out all the times he was leaving. Dr. Neblin didn't figure it out. Fucking Brooke didn't know he was spying on her. They talked about how scared the whole town was. Yeah, they would be like, yo, the whole town was so scared because it's killer. But after a week passed, everybody would go back to normal. And I'm like, a week? I'm sorry, we've had like the 6th death. They've just killed 2 cops and a week passed and they're back out on the streets. 1 week? That's it? Okay. All right. Are you kidding? And then you know what the least believable part was? Oh my God, this pissed me off. I forgot about this. Early on, there was the news anchor who discovered an inside scoop that might connect this serial killer to a serial killer from another town. And before he could reveal the scoop, he was murdered. And he was supposed to share that scoop at like 10 o'clock news, and he was murdered at 8. And I was like, bro, first off, a journalist would have to have shared that with an editor, and they would still get the story out. And like, are you kidding me? It would make national headlines if a local journalist, a local TV anchor was killed by a serial killer while pursuing the story of a serial killer. It would be on every fucking like late night show. It'd be on every fucking Fox, ABC, NBC, CNN. It'd be on everything, man. But they were like, small town. Nobody wanted to pick up this story anymore. It's like, really? A go-getter from TMZ isn't taking the first flight out? Are you fucking kidding me? We're not getting a moist critical video on it tomorrow? Everybody would be on that shit. It was like, nah. Actually, the one murder of the guy who's looking into it scared everybody off. I was like, that's fucking bullshit. That's stupid. So that part certainly, it definitely confused me. Threw me for a loop, if you will. Yeah, the town is definitely in a bubble. Also, the therapist and the mom openly talk to each other. That I believe, although I don't know. But I would believe that, right? Wouldn't a therapist tell the mother the things that the therapist was telling the mother? They can't do that. Can't you? If someone's saying if they're underage, you can. Can't you? If someone's under 18 and they're showing themselves as possibly a threat to themselves or others, I don't think the patient confidentiality applies. Like, they would need to report that shit, no? It'd be malpractice if they didn't, I feel like. I don't know, though. I'm not going to pretend I know about patient confidentiality law or whatever the hell. I think, if I'm being totally honest, this book was a 2 out of 5 for me. I don't know. What rating do you give it, chat? Rate it out of 5 if you read it. Only if you read it, though. It was a painful read. I was mostly cringing. But I like the ending. Like, the reason I wouldn't give it like a 1, and I could understand why someone might even give it a 3, or why someone might, I mean, Bobby Hill, by the way, if you liked it and other people don't like it, I think it's fine. But the reason I gave it a 2 is because the ending was very satisfying after all the pain of the first 20 chapters. The ending conversation with the mother, the ending in finally capturing Crowley, the twist of Nebulin dying because directly of the kid, like that was all pretty satisfying. The movie was a 2 out of 5. I like that it was short and concise. Yeah, I mean, look, I usually like to have some takeaways from a book, you know? And like Cersei, I had takeaways of like the value of being a human, mortality. And then even going further back, like fucking, I remember reading Steve Jobs' biography by Walter Isaacson and taking away like, well, first off, if I get cancer, don't become a fruitarian. But more importantly, like the fucking cutthroatedness he had and the sacrifice that I think a lot of powerful people make to be a good person, and how I don't like that, you know? And this one, my takeaways, I think, were pretty far and few between. Again, like I said earlier, it was literally, I liked the upstanding gentleman that Mr. Crowley was. That was my main takeaway. The audiobook narrator was electric. Totally agreed. Electric. I might. So we need a new book, chat. I think the length of this book was good, especially with the expectation of reading it in a month. I would say for our next book, because we have a theme each month, last theme was short. I think this theme should be a classic. I would like to read a classic. Now, bear in mind, I say let's read a classic. I also would recommend that said classic is relatively short in length. Not because long books are bad or short books are better, but it just usually increases the participation of people. And if it's a 700-page book and you got 4 weeks to read it, it's a bit tough. Sweat on it for a bit. I don't think we're going to pick today. My goal is to do a Parasocial Club stream probably Friday. And we'll talk about it then. But I'm going to tell you the theme now because I think it's worth spending a little more time making sure the book we have is something we'd all like. Because although, you know, and by the way, if you like this book or if you're the person who suggested this book, like, honestly, I mean this honest to God, zero shade. Like, I'm not sad that I read this book. I do not wish that I had the time back. But I think it's worth, you know, making sure that the books we pick has a higher chance of, or maybe even like more polarizing results. Because if I had like 50% of the people saying they fucking loved it and 50% of people saying they hated it, I think it's still a good book. But I'd like for people to really enjoy the takeaway. So think about it. Think about a classic book. Okay, it can be something you had to read in high school. Could be, you know, honestly, the best place to start is who's that fucker? Who's the guy who did the conversation with the Destiny versus Ben Shapiro? Lex Friedman. Yeah, Lex Friedman's book list is a great place to start. That's a great place to start. He's got a book list. It's got all the hits. If you guys don't know, he got roasted for it on Twitter once upon a time. But how to decide if it's a classic? I mean, there's objective measurements. I think there's like Penguin Publishing has a list of things they call classics. But I think it's open to interpretation. And I don't want to limit what you might consider a classic, you know? Like, for example, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I think some people might not think of when they think of a classic, but it is certainly a classic in my mind. And I don't want you to just be like having to think of fucking 10th grade literature, you know? So don't worry about limiting yourself to the definition of what a classic is. Just try your best to fit in the theme. And if you're going to say like, hey, I have a classic, it is the sequel to I'm Not a Serial Killer, I'd be like, okay, well, maybe let's read Mr. Monster. I'd be like, okay, maybe that's not a good one. What do you think about a graphic novel for this club? I'm totally down to do a manga month. I'm totally down. Why not? Manga's great. It counts. Hey, I'll tell you what. If we did a manga month, we would have more fucking participation for sure. We could swap the anime that month to like a movie or a show or something. Will you ever do longer books? If I do longer books, I'd probably have to do like one book across 2 months. So maybe like summer break, we could do one long book that you have to finish by the end of summer. But I think 30 days, you have to read 700 pages is just a bit unrealistic. All right, guys, anime review. I promise I will do it. I'll keep the Discord updated. I did post yesterday that we'd be doing this today. So hopefully that was a bit more helpful to be able to see that. And then I'm going to ask Tim to make a chat room for the Parasocial Club, like a general chat in the Discord. Because I'd like to have that going forward. And then people can chat about what fucking book or anime or whatever the hell they want. Or just yell at me for not having finished the anime. The Discord's discord.gg/Ludwig. All right, chat. I gotta go. Where was the notification? Wait, I pinged yesterday and I pinged today. And I did it after the stream. I did it! You didn't finish the anime? I'm getting there! I finished the book. I feel like I'm one of the rarest breeds in this Parasocial Club. Read the book, didn't watch the anime. There's dozens of us. All right, chat. I got to dip. I appreciate you all. Wait, nothing on Discord? Are you guys in the Parasocial Club? I tagged yesterday. Finished the book today. We're going to do a Parasocial Club stream tomorrow to talk about it. Still working on the anime, and I got 25 face with raised eyebrow. You might need to connect your YouTube channel to your Discord so it knows that you're a member. That might be it. All right, chat. I'm out. We're going to do a YouTube review and an anime review the first week of May. And we got a game night. And then we'll do a new book. And everything will be great and dandy. Appreciate you all being part of Parasource Club. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace. Have a good night. Goodbye.